Great to be with you all tonight. Let me ask a question you might have been asked before. So, where are you from? It's a question we ask all the time. It's how we place ourselves. It's how we understand one another. It's why we say things like, I just want to know where they're coming from. It's a perfectly natural, reasonable question, and I've always wished I had a simpler answer to give when people ask it. I was born in one country, to parents who came from another, and then I moved to another before arriving here in the UK as a child, thoroughly confused and obviously different in ways no one could miss, least of all me. What do you do with that? How do you feel about the things that make you different? Maybe if you dare, look around the room right now. See if anything stands out. How do you feel about the things that make you different? It's complicated, right? Because at one level, we want to stand out. But what if the things that make us different aren't just the reason we stand out, but become reasons we end up being left out? Makes me think about one of my favorite sitcoms, Community. Don't know if any of you have seen it. In one of the episodes, they're filming an advert for their community college. And the advert is asking the question, why do I go to Greendale? And one of the characters, Britta Perry, a blonde student, is meant to say, to meet different people, and then turn and hug Troy, her African-American friend. It's a picture of multi-ethnic harmony. Attractive because, as we so often say, diversity is our strength. And yet, for reasons that aren't to do with them, things go wrong. They end up having to film that advert over and over, take after take, until Troy and Britta lose it. And Britta turns and hugs him and says to meet different people, and Troy shouts, "Stop saying I'm different." And that moment captures so much. It captures so much for us as a society and as individuals. As a society, we want our differences to be something we can celebrate. And at the same time, we feel that difference is a threat. Just think about the marches and protests and clashes on our streets in the past week or two. The multicultural ideal I grew up cherishing feels farther than ever in our public life. And that idea that diversity is our strength, can we really believe that, let alone achieve that in 2003? Difference can threaten us as communities. And for us as individuals, it can leave us feeling rootless and, to use a word Mike did earlier, fragile too. Rootless because I think of my wife, who grew up on the Isle of Wight, and the clue's in the name, and how for 27 years in a row she spent Christmas with the same people in the same room. I can't believe that. I've hardly ever had two in a row in the same place. Rootless and fragile because harder than any overt racism I've experienced are the insidious comments that tell me that all of my achievements are really just down to my token status. Any job or opportunity I get is just because they want to be more diverse, and so I'm just filling a quota. And what do you do when you feel rootless and fragile like that? Well, one option is you try to conform. You work as hard as you can to fit in. You do whatever it takes to excel so that you can prove yourself in a way no one can doubt. I've tried that, and it is hard work. And can I tell you, there is a better way. And it all starts with this. What if the things that make us different are not threats, but gifts? What if they're gifts? Standing in front of the elite of Athens, Paul, an early Christian, spoke across cultural and ethnic barriers, and he said this: "From one man God made all the nations, that they should inhabit the whole earth. And he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their land." God did this so that they would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he is not far from any one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. Might be a bit wordy, but that's another way to answer the question, where are you from? And it tells us that the things that make us different are not accidents. It tells us that we're not accidents either. And as a result, who we really are is not something we have to construct for ourselves or keep performing for others, which, as we've just heard, only ever leaves us exhausted and insecure. Because how do we know if who we're trying to be is who we're meant to be, or all that we're capable of being? No, instead of that, who we really are is something we receive. Because each one of us was made by the God who delights in difference. And he has placed us where we are in the world and when we are in history for a purpose. Did you see it? There's a beautiful paradox in Paul's writing there, or what he says rather, that God has made each one of us different so that each one can find the same goal. Him can reach out to the God who isn't far from any one of us, the God who loves to be found. And he loves to be found so much that this God stepped into history in Jesus Christ to change the world forever. And I have found that it's as we look at Jesus that we learn how to see our differences as gifts rather than threats. Look at Jesus' life and you'll see he is uniquely capable of drawing together people from all kinds of different backgrounds and bringing them peace with one another and peace with him. He can do that with those who share his Jewish culture and those outside it, men and women, old and young, rich and poor, people across the political spectrum. He offers each one an all-embracing welcome that changes everything. And it changes everything because Jesus comes to bring forgiveness. Forgiveness for all of the ways that we've turned on one another, for all of the ways that we've turned in on ourselves, for all the ways that we've turned against the God who made us. And Jesus offers that forgiving welcome at the cost of his life. Because as one ancient Christian philosopher put it, only on a cross do you die with your arms outstretched. And that welcome he offers changes everything. Changes everything for me as an individual. In his welcome, I find a secure identity. Not that fragile one I have to keep coming up with or keep performing for other people, but one I can rest in. Because as Mike said, I'm known through and through and not rejected, seen for all my faults and still forgiven, still loved. And as a society, what Jesus offers changes everything as well. Because gathered around Jesus, we can see the nations as members of one delightfully diverse human family, brought together with all those differences, none of them erased. And in fact, the Bible says that is where history is headed, with humanity from every nation, tribe, people, and tongue gathered around Jesus forever. And that matters. It matters because we could ask another question, just as important as the question, where are you from? Where are you going? Where are we going? Growing up, there was a phone company called Orange, and they had an advertising campaign, "The future's bright, the future's orange." Two problems with that. One, that slogan makes no sense. Two, that company no longer exists. But if I can borrow from them, with Jesus, the future's bright. The future's every color a human being can be. Because it turns out that in his hands, the things that make us different become the gifts we've always longed for them to be. Jesus offers us the identity that doesn't erase our difference in order to bring us together, but enables them to shine in all their glory. And that's something that can transform everything for us. If that's where history's headed, if that's what Jesus can accomplish, if human beings can be brought together, people from every nation, tribe, people and tongue, not forced to conform to some ideal that shuts some out, but brought together in all their difference. That gives us what we need to strive today for peace and justice. Take that famous thing Martin Luther King Jr. Once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Is that true? Well, take God out of the picture, and that's just another slogan that makes no sense. Take God out of the picture, and there is no moral universe, just time, matter, and chance, and the heat depth of everything billions of years after we're gone. But Martin Luther King Jr. knew reality isn't really like that. He knew Jesus' all-embracing welcome for himself. And he knew that this is where history is headed. So let me ask you, what would change for you personally? What would change for us as communities if with Jesus, the things that make us different aren't threats, but gifts? If with Jesus, there is forgiveness enough to cover over all the ways we get it wrong, and indeed to make us forgiving people with one another. If with Jesus, there is a glorious future where all the things that make us different get to stand out without being the reason anyone is left out. What would change? Thanks so much for listening to me.